Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at, basically, to cut a long story short, a guide on exactly how, when, where, why, everything you need to know about item enhancement. This means gems, enchanting, armor kits, and basically everything you can do to fine-tune your gear for in-game content or high-level content in World of Warcraft. This will be a general guide, so it's going to mainly reference timings and constructive ideas for players more than specific enchants to follow. Nowadays, the real question is, when should you enchant your gear, or enhance your gear, or apply gems, or armor kits? Well, we have kind of an innate system now, because back in the day it used to be like, oh, I'm teetering between these kind of item levels. Now we have a bit more of a concrete mechanism to use. Basically, anything that is hero or mythic gear, I would consider pretty simply to just apply item enhancements to. This gear won't be replaced fairly soon. This gear will last you fairly long into the season. You will have a pretty good time with it. If you are looking at champion level gear, I would say to refrain from enhancing, enchanting or applying gems, etc. until such time that you are happy that either A, you're not getting a better piece anytime soon, or B, you really need that enhancements or that push to do the content you want to do. For me, unless you have super bad RNG, you should very rarely be enchanting champion gear. One or two pieces, maybe, sure. Applying gems to them, no problem, because you can unsocket those generally. But really, it should be for hero and mythic pieces, because you won't change those so often, and your money you expend is more like investing than just, throwing money away. So how big a difference does enchanting gems, armor kits actually make? Like, what am I actually going to get? Well, you're going to understand it's not huge. There are certain ones that make quite a sizable difference, and we'll talk about that now. But I want to preface this by saying, in terms of raw stats, you are not going to be gaining a ton. For example, even if you were to give absolutely everything a stamina upgrade, or you were to give everything a critical or a haste upgrade, we are talking at most here 1 or 2% up in certain areas. We are not talking significantly huge, powerful boosts. We're not talking like 10-20% power gains. There are certain enchants, definitely, that can make more considered differences than others. Generally, these are your weapon enchants. Like, a great example is, for example, my weapon enchant, which can give me temporary primary stat boosts, which means in instances I can be getting almost 2 to 3% more agility than I would have had before, which obviously makes a big difference in that moment. So it's definitely a sizable impact. I would say when you add all of the good enchanting, all of the good, if you were to like go and invest in enchant, socket, gem, everything you gear properly, you're talking an overall maybe 3 or 4% between like good weapon enchants, good secondary stat enchants, good like additional effect enchants, good gems, good this, good that. We're talking at the most 3, maximum 4% improvement in your capabilities, which is still a lot. Like, if you had to think about it overall, it's still a sizable difference. But just to stress to you that importance, I mean, if you look at my stamina stat, I have 589,000. A armor kit and a stamina enchant will give me 1,600. We're literally talking 0.6%, even less. 5,800 is 1%, so we're talking 0.3% of a stamina point there. Obviously, it still helps. Every percentage helps, but we're talking high level gains here. Now, what is enchanting, and when and what should you enchant first? Now, enchanting is very simple. Enchanting is when you buy enchants off the auction house, or you craft them as an enchanter, and you apply them to that piece, and they're permanently applied to that piece. If, for example, I apply a stamina boost to, for example, my chest piece, that boost will stay until that chest piece is destroyed. It is a good permanent upgrade. Now, not every item piece can be enchanted. Some can have armor kits applied to them, some just can't be enchanted at all. But generally speaking, a lot of your big slots do have enchants. Your weapons do, your chest does, your legs do, but in a different way. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Your braces do, your gloves do, your back does, your shoulders can be, etc., etc. The biggest change will probably come for most classes from weapon enchants. However, you shouldn't prioritize enchanting technically anything first. Like, let's say, for example, you get really lucky and you have a hero level back piece and a hero level chest piece drop that you can use. Enchant those pieces. Like, you know they're hero level, you know that they are going to be with you for a while. There's no harm in enchanting those pieces. Like, there's nothing that's going to hurt you. Unless you're someone who, for whatever reason, cannot generate any gold whatsoever, then I understand maybe being super restrictive. But generally speaking, if the weapon is in the hero or mythic track, you should just enchant it straight away. Ideally, let's say you had to spawn a character and you only had 10,000 gold to spend, you would probably want to enchant your weapons first, because they do make probably the biggest impact due to the way that they are spiked base abilities. So they're like abilities that can proc, that actually do quite significant stuff. Like mine, for example, can give me huge temporary stat boosts. Other people have ones that can give them additional healing, etc. There is a lot of benefits to it. So outside of weapon, though, everything's pretty much fair game. I would say set pieces as well are good to start with, because you're unlikely to change those as well. Now, what are armor kits? So just briefly, I mentioned them earlier, but armor kits are enchanting for legs. They're just made by leather workers. So it's the same concept, it's just a stat boost that can be applied to a certain piece. Again, 100%, my suggestion, always do this. If you've got a leg piece like me, I've got a hero leg piece, I should be applying an armor kit to it. That extra stamina, that extra agility, is it going to break the bank? No. Is it going to help me perform at a higher level? Yes, 100%. So armor kits are just enchants for legs. Generally speaking, they are literally just stat buffs. So for most classes, this is just something you buy, you apply, and then you walk off into the sun. They're very, very, very straightforward. Now, obviously, we've covered quite a bit about enchanting. I think something that's super important to kind of cover before we move on is that there are other uses outside of endgame services. So a lot of what I focus on is always endgame. And I mean, with enchanting and gems, it's an expensive process. You are spending, like right now, to fully kit out my character in this video, I had to spend close to, well, not fully kit him out, but just to buy the enchants that I wanted for the hero pieces I wanted for the purposes of the video. I was looking at, like, I think about 20k gold. It's not a game breaker, but it is expensive, especially if you are a casual player. There are other uses though, and some can be a lot cheaper. So for example, a great one is speed boosts. If you're someone who likes to level ults and you just want to have an easier time running from quest to quest using heirloom gear scales with you. So if you're using heirloom gear and you're looking to really speed up your leveling process, buying yourself some 10% movement speed boosts and just enchanting those heirloom pieces is going to be really amazing for you. So I can't stress enough how there are values outside of the endgame. There's also your crafting items, so you can enchant your profession items to give you more secondary stats for professions. This makes a big difference in terms of the gear and the quality of things that you craft. You can get enchants that will give you cosmetic appearances and adjust how your shoulders look, or give you auras and effects. There's stuff outside of, or I'm just looking to maximize my in-game potential. And I completely understand that, but it's just not something that I think you should solely focus on. And these are generally cheap, so I do think like you can strike a happy medium in spending a little bit of gold for some convenience, more so than potentially only spending gold on your item upgrades that are going to phase out eventually into the next season. Now, enchanting's great, but there are also gems. So I would say the second most significant component of item enhancement is gems. Gems are a little bit different because unlike enchanting, so if I buy a bracer enchant, I can apply it to my braces. Gems require you to have empty sockets on your item pieces. So if you look at a piece of gear, you will see kind of in gray on that piece of gear, oh, this piece of gear has a prismatic socket. This piece of gear has a socket for me to place a gem. And you can go buy those gems off the auction house. You can also get them if you're a jewel crafter. If we take a look, for example, at my neck piece, we'll see a prismatic socket there. And that's very important because applying gems to gear is, again, largely a method of gaining some auxiliary stats. I will say gems, outside of maybe one or two, are generally just stat boosters and largely a focus on secondary stats. So when it comes to gems, basically applying them and obtaining sockets is super simple. So what you do is basically if you have a socket, awesome, okay, all gear that can roll sockets can't roll more than one. So for example, if I find a prismatic socket on my leg piece, that's it. Like, I can't add more. However, if I don't have a socket on my leg piece, I can add, and we'll talk about that just now. The only exception to this, I believe, is crafted neck pieces, which players can craft and can have up to 3 gem sockets. So I believe that crafted neck pieces can have up to 3 empty gem sockets, which obviously makes them quite enticing to players who want a little bit more control over that secondary stat line distribution. Now, you need to have the socket to apply the gems. And basically, it's, realistically, I would say, a pretty straightforward process to actually apply them. In terms of the obtaining of sockets, the only way I know right now to obtain sockets in the game is to exchange your Elgari merit tokens that you get from completing certain seasonal tasks in your Great Vault rewards for a socket addition item. This will change season to season, but it's always sold by the same vendor outside of the Great Vault, and you can apply it to your items. So you can see here, for 6 Elgari merit tokens, I can apply or buy an item that would let me apply a socket to my gear. You get more tokens based on the kind of gear or tasks that you complete, but obviously, you will need 6 of them to exchange for the item. Now, this can only be used on helms, braces, or belts, and also it can't apply sockets to pieces that you already have a socket on. Now, in terms of gems, it's super important that gems are not like enchants. So gems should just be applied pretty much freely. Again, keeping in mind that hero gear is going to have more longevity, but gems can be socketed out. So honestly, gems aren't as like, wait until you get gear of a certain style. Gems you can get pretty much whenever, and socket as soon as you have an empty socket. The gem itself, you always want to focus on ones that augment your secondary stats that you want. Like I said, these make more of a difference here. If you're going to get 3 or 4 of the same gems, it's more effective than getting like one of each different type of gem, if that makes sense. For example, if I get 3 deadly emerald gems, that could give me a whole percentage point in haste, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it makes a big difference. So this is what I mean. Focus on more the same gem that's augmenting a stat you crucially need. Last thing I want to mention is just some precautions on item enhancement. So you may think, item enhancement, yes. It cost me around 20k gold just to be semi fine-tuned. This isn't a lot of money, but repeating it 3, 4, or 5 times because you keep changing piece every couple of days is expensive. So just play it safe when you are augmenting. Keep to these rules and you'll be fine. Also, at the same time, just make sure that you are maximizing the right things. Don't go and augment stats that just aren't useful to your class. Other than that, that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, bye.